have an exciting guest today. Ole Christian is here to talk a little bit about role-playing games. First, what is a role-playing game?
A role-playing game is a game where you take on a character that has a personality and some game-like statistic. And you enter a game where there's often a storyteller or a game master, moderator, that describes the scene, and you are free to interact within this scene.
And does the story master or the storyteller choose the scene themselves, or do you have help on how that should be developed?
Both. There are pre-created stories. This is a book where there are just stories, settings, descriptions of an entire campaign or an entire longer narrative. While other games may be more open, and you may just use the rules from, say, this book and make your entirely own story or entirely own settings.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking a little bit earlier about where role-playing games came from and how they became popular. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. It started in the 70s. It's usually accredited to Gary Gygax, which created Chainmail. And that was a variant of wargaming. And it used miniatures to control with personalities. And there was a moderator that then created the stories that these miniatures went through, like dungeons and potentially encountered dragons.
Ah, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
And you said military because almost as long as we've been at war with each other, we have used that sort of idea. You were telling me a little bit about that too.
Yes. There are, wargaming is really old and goes back to the German Kriegsspiel. And it's used to in military academies for people to train strategists, etc. And role-playing games is sort of a combination of those two worlds, that world and a storyteller perspective. That's an integral part of human nature. Mm-hmm. And you have in addition to that, an interactive aspect. So there's a storyteller, and you may interact with the story, and occasionally there's miniatures that you may use and statistics that you may use to improve your own gaming experience.
And how is a live role-playing game different than a role-playing game that you do online?
Well, there are two online role-playing games, video games. There are limitations put in by the programmer, the game development, and you can't take into account all the things people want to do in a game. While in a role-playing game, since there's a moderator, you may say you want to do whatever. And then the moderator says, okay, roll this die. And if the number is higher than that, then you may do it. It just happens. So there's it's limitless imagination and creativity.
Next time we come back, because Ole Christian will be joining us in another episode, we're going to talk about how we can use some of that imagination and creativity to create characters and what exactly we do with these dice. We'll see you next time.